Good morning, everybody, and welcome along to Blood Red's morning bulletin, the Liverpool News Daily. We bring you the daily dose of everything Liverpool FC. You join me, Patrick Smith, today. I'm hosting alongside Emmet Gates of Liverpool.com, and we're going to be looking ahead to Liverpool's fixture against Man City tomorrow, 12:30 early kickoff. Always a dreaded one, though, isn't it? But before that, we're just going to touch on Liverpool's training yesterday because there's been some boosts, Emmet, haven't there, in Liverpool's training session on Thursday. We've seen Luis Diaz return to Liverpool first team action. That's probably the most exciting point, isn't it? We should definitely start with that one. He's a massive, massive booster, isn't he, heading into those last 12 fixtures in the Premier League. He's going to be maybe not used this weekend, but his return is a welcome one, surely, for the remainder of April and May.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure, like myself and all Liverpool fans, kind of wish that he was back for this game, or he could, make a late cameo appearance. But as you say, considering that, I wouldn't say he was rushed back, initially, but maybe he returned sooner than he should have, and then he suffered a relapse, and he's the injury, which was supposed to be 2 months, is now dragged into five. He's been out another 3 months. So I think Jurgen Klopp and the medical team in Liverpool are clearly just going to take it easy with him, ease him back in gently, and they don't want him to suffer another relapse. So yeah, I think the case with Diaz is just whenever he'll play whenever he's ready to play, and they'll not rush him back. But obviously, you would love to see him in a game like this come back, even if it's 20 minutes, 15 minutes off the bench. But it is a big boost for Liverpool, and they're going to need him. If Liverpool want to make the Champions League, they have to win every single game. Now, the last 12 games, I think Jurgen Klopp said it was 12 cup finals, and that's essentially what it is. They're 7 points off of Tottenham, albeit with 2 games in hand, but they have to win them games plus the 10 others. Um, so yeah, from tomorrow, the cup final start, and obviously having Diaz back for that run. Yes, we might not see him tomorrow, but he will be pivotal, I think, on that left hand side, because I do think, in retrospect, I would say Liverpool's season kind of changed when he got injured. I think that if he hadn't have been injured for so long, things might be a lot different now. Liverpool might not be in the title race because there's bigger issues than Luis Diaz, but I don't think they would have been. At one point Liverpool were 10th. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
that would have been the case had Diaz not been injured. So his injury against Arsenal in early October definitely changed the trajectory of Liverpool's season, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I mean, the wheels were already falling off. I mean, we can't pretend they weren't. But I think his injury came at such a bad time. Because I think it was just after the Napoli defeat as well, wasn't it? And then obviously losing to Arsenal, losing Luis Diaz. Because the attack did struggle. I mean, we're forgetting that Cody Gakpo only joined in January. And it could have been a case where only Salah and Nunez were the fit attackers for the whole of January. Remember, it was, Gakpo was sort of shoehorned in on the left-hand side because there was no one fit to play. Because obviously Firmino was injured too. So, I mean, it's a number of things. And, without wanting to simplify the Liverpool medical team's work. I mean, they're not going to rush him back now, are they? Because they clearly made that mistake in the Dubai training camp, thinking he could get some, fitness and minutes under his belt. I don't think they'll be doing that now. I mean, who knows? We could be surprised, and he could make a little cameo, couldn't he, at the Etihad? But I'd be expecting to see him in, May. To be honest, just playing for the last few games. Bring him on as a substitute here. I really wouldn't be risking him in the next month or so. Just wanted to get into training for a month solid, maybe play the odd 5-10 minutes here or there. But also, Emmet, we saw Darwin Nunez train with Liverpool. He pulled out of Uruguay's international squad with a cut ankle. He sustained against Real Madrid. Now, again, simplifying the work of the Liverpool medical team. I'm not sure how serious that cut actually was, and if he just didn't fancy travelling to the Far East to play Japan and South Korea in friendlies. I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, do you think Nunez actually was injured, or do you think he's maybe saving himself with the advice of the Liverpool coaches for the run-in?
Yeah, I mean, when you say cut to his ankle, I mean, how deep is this cut? How deep are we talking? Is it kind of one of those um, Alex Ferguson, Ryan Giggs, basically not wanting Giggs to play for Wales, so Giggs will come up with a million different excuses not to play for Wales, in meaningless friendlies. I think it could be one of those, as opposed to, unless it was a really deep cut, and as we said, we're kind of simplifying what a deep cut is, or what just a cut to the ankle is. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's good to have Nunez back. He's had 2 weeks of rest, and I think he'll be a big player in the home stretch. Um, Obviously, we all know the trials and tribulations that Nunez has had since he joined. But he's definitely gathering some momentum now, some steam since the turn of the year, I would say. Even if he's not scoring every game, his performances have all been of a high standard, and his running, his willingness to basically cover every blade of grass, easy for me to say, in that final third of the pitch. He's on the left, he's on the right, he's through the middle. Um, and I think now we could see a different Nunez with a couple of weeks rest, and hopefully the cut to his ankle is healed, and we could see Nunez score more goals now in this last home stretch. So yeah, it's obviously good to have him back as well, and you'd imagine he will start tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point I was making before. We've obviously had Jota and Firmino recently come back from injury. It feels like Nunez and Gakpo haven't had much of a rest. And on that, I mean, firstly, for Man City, what attack would you be starting for the match on Saturday? And then let's say for, when all the attackers are fully fit, let's say in May, who would you start in the attack? So let's start with City this weekend, Emmet, and then obviously cast your eyes forward to May when all 5 attackers are fully fit. How would you shape them up?
Yeah, I mean, for tomorrow, to be honest, I would go Salah, Nunez, Gakpo. I think you got to go with. I think Jota simply doesn't have enough minutes in his legs at this point. I mean, he played in the Real Madrid game, and then there was a 2-week break, so he's no momentum, he's no rhythm. So I would just go with not the tried and tested, but go with basically the players that are 100% fit, match fit, whatever you want to call it. So I would go with Gakpo, Nunez, and Salah. Whether you put Nunez through the middle or Gakpo through the middle and Nunez on the left, I'm not sure. But that's who I would start with for the City game. In terms of for the last couple of months of the season, I think you got to go Diaz, Nunez, and Salah. I would choose for me. I mean, Diaz, if he's once he's finally fit and 100%, he's a lock for the left side. It's his position. Nobody's taking that away from him. If he's fit, he's playing. So yeah, I would go with Diaz, Nunez, and Salah would be my 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one for tomorrow as well, I suppose, because it depends how serious Nunez's injury actually was. But he seemed fine in training, so you'd assume that he'd start. But then maybe if he has actually got quite a bad ankle, you could bring him on, supposedly. I think Jota may be more effective starting than coming on because he doesn't seem to make much of an impact. He's sort of lacking that little burst of pace that we saw from last season. Obviously, hopefully that comes back after such a serious injury. You do never know. But I mean, yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it, towards the end of the season with will Klopp stick with 3 attackers or do you try and shoehorn 4? And I think there's a way with, if you were to play Diaz, Nunez, Salah, and then maybe have Gakpo as a sort of floating midfielder / number 10. I think he's got the skill set to play there potentially. I think that could be a way to go around it. Because, of course, there are injuries in the midfield. And the midfield, let's just be honest, hasn't been great this season. And particularly with that, Thiago Alcantara, we expected him to potentially return to training yesterday as well. He wasn't there. He wasn't seen in the pictures. We don't know if he trained or not, but we're going to assume he hasn't trained for Liverpool. He hasn't recovered from his injury. He's missed a lot of games again, Emmet, this season. Now, is there a case in the summer with 12 months left on his contract you maybe try and cash in on Thiago because his availability has been poor, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm a big favorite of Thiago's. I think he's just a beautiful player to watch. But in saying that, he has been, as you said, unavailable for a large percentage of Liverpool's games ever since he joined. I wouldn't say he's made of glass, but he's not far off it, and he's not really reliable. In the long, over the course of a season, you're going to miss Thiago for maybe a third of it, maybe even more. So, as you say, with a year left in his contract, I think if there's interest there from clubs, maybe Liverpool should look about moving him on. Because to be honest with you, I think Liverpool's midfield needs a serious revolution. It's not just 1 or 2 players. I think there's at least 3 players, maybe even 4, that need definitely 3 or 4 that need moved on, and there's probably 3 or 4 that need brought in, I would say. So, just doing the odd tinker and bringing in 1 or 2, I don't think it's enough, to be honest. So Thiago could be one of those that you would look at and say, well, he's got a year left in his contract. He's never 100% fit for long stretches of time. Maybe we should just, wish him all the best, pat him on the back, and off he goes. If there's a serious interest there, it could be something to do look at in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tricky one, isn't it? Because, I've said this on so many podcasts. He's one of my favourite Liverpool players that I've ever seen play. The things he can do, the control he has on the ball is the best I've ever seen in a Liverpool shirt by far. But I think now, particularly this season, he's not been that effective, and it's not what this Liverpool team needs, I don't think. Unfortunately, it's a round peg in a square hole, maybe a bit the way around which way you meant to say that. And they do need that big revamp in the summer. I think if someone offers money for him, I think you definitely take it. It'll be 32, I think, what he turns 32 in the summer. A year left on his contract. Take what you can, free up some wage space for other players. But yeah, it's a really difficult one, isn't it, Emmet? But speaking of injuries, for Man City, Liverpool's opposition on Saturday, Erling Haaland obviously withdrew from the Norway international squad after he met up with them, after he had a groin injury in their win over Burnley in the FA Cup. Haaland hasn't trained all week. He didn't train yesterday when the press were allowed to film at City's training. Now, do you think they're playing some mind game tactics here, Emmet, or do you think City could play without Haaland? And also, City without Erling Haaland, do you think that's a obviously much easier prospect for Liverpool? But do you think it could actually be problematic? Because there's been some critics, namely Jamie Carragher this season, who thinks City actually played better without Erling Haaland. And we've seen Virgil van Dijk pocket him a couple of times this season. It could pose a problem for Liverpool potentially, couldn't it?
And actually, you're right. It could, in the sense that Haaland is a fixed number 9. He's not going to float out to the left, float out to the right. He's not, as we know, Pep Guardiola sometimes likes to play with 11, Ederson in goal and plus 10 attacking midfielders, even putting them at right back and left back and centre back. He loves his attacking midfielders that are interchangeable, that can play in different positions. And that makes it more unpredictable for more unpredictable for the opposition to be able to mark, certain players. Because if you move a certain player, mark a certain player, and he can float anywhere, then do you push forward? That leaves space in behind, and so on. So City actually do look better, I believe, when Haaland isn't there, because he's such a fixed number 9, and you know what you're getting from him, and so do the opposition. So if you're Liverpool and you're Virgil van Dijk or Ibrahim Konate, you know what Haaland's about. You know what his aim is, to score goals. So he's easier to mark in that sense. And saying that, he scored a bazillion goals this season, so he's clearly doing something right. And he's obviously a remarkable player. But I do think it's made City a bit more predictable, because they get the ball and it is basically feed Haaland, which makes it easier for the opposition and Liverpool tomorrow.
It's easy to defend against as well, isn't it? Because, for someone like Virgil van Dijk, he can physically dominate Haaland, and he knows what he's going to be defending against, so it's easier. And then, sorry to interrupt you, but the small matter of, it's going to be Julian Alvarez we expect an attack, who is by no means an easy player to mark. I mean, the point you made as well of, the players dropping in and out of positions, Julian Alvarez could cause Liverpool some real problems, couldn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And I actually think the bigger blow for City tomorrow is that Phil Foden isn't there. He's out, and obviously he's one of City's main, creators. So I think he'll be a bigger blow to City than if Haaland doesn't make it. If Haaland does make it, you kind of would think, yeah, you know what, that's not too bad, because you know what he's about, you know what his game's about, you know what he's going to do. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if it is actual, he is missing, or if it's just like, slight tactics from City, kind of trying to keep Jurgen Klopp guessing up until the last moment. But if Haaland does make it tomorrow, I wouldn't be that necessarily worried, because like I said, you know what you're getting from him, you know what his game's about, and Virgil van Dijk can handle him. So yeah, I just think if it's Liverpool need to try and win the midfield battle, I think could be key. And considering the way Liverpool's midfield has been this season, I don't know if that's possible.
No, I know, yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about it. The City midfield is arguably one of the best in the world, maybe second from Real Madrid's. So it's certainly going to be an interesting one. I think the prospect of them playing without Erling Haaland, something we've not seen Liverpool play against this season against City, could be, it could be great, or it could end badly for them because Liverpool don't know what to expect. I mean, who knows? Well, we all made clear, won't it, around 2 hours' time from this time tomorrow. But as for now, everyone, we'll leave this morning bulletin there. We've, of course, got the Blood Red podcast coming out later, so make sure you subscribe to the Blood Red channel and keeping your eyes peeled so you don't miss that one being uploaded, as well as Jurgen Klopp's press conference as well. I'm sure Klopp will clear up how serious Darwin Nunez's cut ankle is and hopefully give us an update on the injury of Thiago Alcantara as we await for him to return. But for now, from myself, Patrick Smith and Emmet Gates, the morning bulletin will continue as usual next Monday, so we'll catch you then.